and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo in Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. Malawi's Constitutional Court has nullified last year's presidential elections, calling for a new election. The court cited irregularities and deliberate alterations to the results, which made the elections neither free nor fair. According to the ruling, Peter Mutharika, who had been declared winner of the presidential election, now becomes unduly elected president. This landmark ruling comes after a petition by opposition parties and a series of mass protests over the disputed results. Former Bolivian President Evo Morales has denounced that the de facto government, which he refers to as the dictatorship, has ordered the arrest of his lawyer Wilfredo Chávez. Chávez was Morales' power of attorney after legal representative Patricia Hermosa was arrested on Friday and then sentenced to 6 months preventive detention after carrying the documents required to register Morales as a Legislative Assembly candidate. Wilfredo Chávez is also the political delegate of the movement towards socialism on the new Supreme Electoral Tribunal. And the news broke as the candidates for Bolivia's movement towards socialism party prepares to launching their campaign in the city of La Paz, alongside social movements and the COP Labor Federation. A gathering began at the Plaza San Francisco at noon local time. From there, they'll march together with Luis Arce Catacora and David Choquehuanca to register as candidates for the office of President and Vice President for the May 3rd election at the headquarters of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. Morales' first power of attorney, Patricia Hermosa, is being accused of sedition and terrorism. The former president has since said he will flag the de facto authorities' theft of his personal documents internationally. Morales added that he will also file a report with the Bolivian prosecutor's office for aggravated robbery. Bolivian former Minister Cesar Navarro and Deputy Minister Pedro Damián Dorado arrived in Mexico on Sunday, where they'll seek protection from the government. The two ex-officials of the Morales administration boarded an alternative flight after they were detained at the airport in El Alto on Saturday morning. Their arrest was a breach of the International Asylum Treaty, especially since they were granted safe conduct by Bolivia's de facto authorities. Mexico's foreign ministry said its diplomatic efforts, along with international support, ensured the man's safe release. Moving on, in Colombia, a letter signed by several legislators and sent to the Attorney General is requesting that he assume jurisdiction over the alleged acts of corruption to which former Senator Aida Merlano could give evidence. Lawmakers are asking that a commission be designated to travel to Venezuela to hear Merlano's statements regarding how vote buying networks operate throughout Colombia's Caribbean coast. In a recent address, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro invited the Colombian prosecutor's office, lawmakers and media to meet with Merlano in Venezuela. However, the Colombian government has turned to Juan Guaidó to request the former senator's extradition, despite that Guaidó has no authority to fulfill such a request.
I have asked the Attorney General and the Supreme Court of Justice to invite Colombian institutions that want to come to take a statement from Senator Aida Merlano here in Venezuela. They can come, they will be welcome, and they will also receive all guarantees for this Colombian citizen to make her statement to the prosecution in Venezuela before the Attorney General, before the courts. And what's more, this is a public invitation to senators and other members of Congress from Colombia that want to come, and to the Colombian press that would like to interview Senator Aida Merlano. I say the doors are open for them to come to Venezuela and for her to give her testimony and state everything she knows about what happened.
U.S. military members and contractors based in Colombia reportedly raped 54 girls between 2003 and 2007, recorded most of the sexual abuses, and sold it as pornographic material. The figures are part of the new report by the Commission on the Conflict and its Victims made by the government and former FARC members. The report was created to determine the origins and multiple causes of the armed conflict in Colombia. It includes cases of U.S. interference, counterinsurgency, and state terrorism. The author of the report says there was impunity due to bilateral agreements and diplomatic immunity by U.S. officials. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has said that the major energy agreement signed with Venezuela back in August of 2018 has to be resigned because U.S. sanctions made it impossible to do business with PDVSA. Speaking at the 2020 Energy Conference, Rowley said progress in the development of the unitized Laura and Manatee field has been impeded by the sanctions imposed by the U.S. government, which inhibits U.S. companies from doing business with Venezuelan oil company PDVSA. He went on to say that as a consequence of the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the government of Venezuela agreed to the independent development by each government of the field within the Laura and Manatee cross-border that falls within its marine area. Oil workers in Brazil continue with their general strike against privatizations and massive layoffs by the government of Jair Bolsonaro. The Union of Oil Workers began the strike on Saturday, but is expecting more workers to join during the week. According to the union, close to 8,000 workers are already on strike across 10 states. They are protesting against the recent layoffs of almost 8,000 workers at the state-run oil company Petrobras. The strike closed 12 refineries on the weekend. And still in Brazil, indigenous people of the Guarani ethnicity are planting trees on ancestral territories in Sao Paulo after a real estate project cut down around 4,000 trees.
Brazilian construction company Tenda has cut down 4,000 trees in an area nearby the indigenous Jaragua territory, located in the park and natural reserve with the same name. The indigenous Guarani are the custodians of a green oasis which lies an hour away from the largest city in Brazil, Sao Paulo. They held an occupation of the area and spent 4 nights holding prayer for the chopped down trees.
The company says that it doesn't directly affect communities, but it does affect both directly and renders effects. They're also committing an environmental crime. In principle, they said that they would only cut eucalyptus, but when we came, we saw that there are a number of dead native trees, as well as dead animals, like in the birds' nests.
The real estate project is looking to build 5 luxury buildings and is colluding with Sao Paulo City Hall. The indigenous people demand adherence to the right to prior consultation as per the Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention of 1989, given that this is ancestral territory.
Our wood, our nature. I hope lawmakers understand what our concern is. We are very concerned. They are removing our territory. The earth is not mine alone. It belongs to all Guaranis. They must understand that.
Deforestation over the last 6 months has already exceeded the sum of all deforestation in 2018. The president believes that the indigenous people should be inserted into capitalism. They've responded to him by replenishing in an area where devastation has been left by the market and passed on to nature by planting 200 trees on the company's territory.
This place is protected by Handeru. Things that are part of the land should not be touched. We fight to acquire the territory, not just to own it. We think of everything that is our struggle and our cause. We fight for environmental preservation. We Guaranis fight for a cause for all, not only for the indigenous people.
While in Sao Paulo, real estate extractivism progresses over nature and wildlife, the federal government is preparing to liberalize laws which govern mining, hydroelectric, and agricultural activities on indigenous lands. The Guaranis have begun 2020 occupying, praying, and planting with help from the rain to strengthen the roots.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomen. Monday, only on Telesur.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's so-called Middle East plan. The announcement was made during the organization's extraordinary meeting in Saudi Arabia. Speaking on behalf of other members, Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Faisal Al Saud stressed the OIC's insistence on a comprehensive solution that guarantees the rights of the Palestinian people to establish a state with East Jerusalem as its capital. The 57-member body has also warned its members not to engage with the plan or to cooperate with the U.S. administration in implementing it in any form.
Saudi Arabia is supporting all the efforts to keep the wheel of negotiation moving and to achieve a fair solution for the Palestine cause. We believe that these efforts should have a final goal of delivering a fair solution for the Palestine people, to establish their independent country with Eastern Jerusalem as its capital in accordance with international legitimacy and decisions.
The announcement comes as Palestinians continue protesting against the so-called Middle East peace plan. On Saturday night, thousands took to the streets of the besieged Gaza Strip to express their anger at Trump and his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. The protesters burned mock coffins bearing the portraits of both leaders. The widely rejected deal allows Israel to cement its control over Jerusalem and its holy sites, maintain military control of Palestine, and formalize the annexation of the West Bank.
This deal was a dead deal before it was even born because the Palestinian consensus rejected it completely. This decision is a decision made by a state and not an international one. Of course, the decision is in the hands of the Palestinian people because they are the owner of the land and will expel the occupation from the entire Palestinian national soil.
And heavily armed Israeli security forces attacked university students who attempted to stage a protest against the deal in the occupied West Bank city of Hebron. The security forces fired tear gas, rubber-coated steel bullets, and live ammunition to disperse the gathering. A 27-year-old journalist was rushed to a hospital after being shot to the head. Preliminary reports say he suffered a fractured skull and is in a stable condition. Moving on, the U.S. primaries began on Monday night with the Democratic Party caucuses in Iowa. 11 candidates are vying for the party's nomination. The latest polls put Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, representing the right and left wings of the party, in the lead. Both of them have 22% of the preferences.
This election is about two fundamental issues. First, it is absolutely imperative for the future of this country that we defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. And what that agenda says. Sanders! Sanders! Tomorrow night is the beginning. It is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
The state of Iowa is 90% white, but the Latin American community is growing and could have an important influence in the election. The Sanders campaign has been making a big push to win over the Latino vote.
Because they know that our community is growing very, very fast here in the state of Iowa and is expected to double by 2050 here in the state. And so it's important for us to be engaged in the process, especially here in Iowa, because we have a significant Latino population. Across the country, every 30 seconds, a Latino turns 18 and is eligible to vote, and we will be the largest non-white voting bloc heading into the 2020 elections. And if they're going to recruit friends and family to...
I felt the pain in my community when Trump was elected. Because he just created these narratives, you know, that criminalized, stereotyped immigrants in the U.S. And I decided that maybe, like, for this year, I actually want to work on making sure that Trump doesn't get reelected.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A review of the world news that investigates,
incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dotting the I. Saturdays. Only on Venezuela.
China has denounced the decision by a number of countries to deny entry to people who have visited the country in the past 14 days. Beijing's ambassador for disarmament to the United Nations, Li Song, said such measures will not stop the spread of the virus but only lead to the increase in stigma and discrimination against Chinese nationals. Earlier on Monday, the World Health Organization said that these measures unnecessarily interfere with international travel and trade in trying to halt the spread of the coronavirus that has killed 361 people in China.
2 dozen countries and affected.
临时建议指出 whose temporary recommendations do not recommend any travel and trade restrictions. We are all in this together. It concerns every country and everyone in this world. During the 2014 Western Africa Ebola outbreak, a high-level UN panel pointed out that taking excessive international travel restriction measures may lead some countries affected by the virus to stop voluntarily reporting information to the WHO out of fear of being impacted by potential restrictions. As mentioned by Dr. Tedros, we need facts, not fear. We need science, not rumors. We need solidarity, not stigma.
Meanwhile, the WHO has launched a campaign to combat the spread of false information surrounding the coronavirus. The UN Health Agency says it is working with social media firms to stop unverified news about the outbreak.
Combat the spread of rumors and misinformation. To that end, we have worked with Google to make sure people searching for information about coronavirus see WHO information at the top of their search results.
Our correspondent in Beijing, Iramsi Peraza, has more details on the coronavirus outbreak.
The number of people who have died from the new coronavirus in China is now 361, and those infected are more than 17,000. The virus, which has been scientifically named 2019 NCOV, has put China under a health emergency. 148 cases of infection have been recorded outside China, and also the first death outside of China has been recorded in the Philippines. Authorities have strengthened security measures to contain the pneumonia virus. The National Commission on Development and Reform has said that they have a plan to secure the delivery of food and medicine, mainly to the cities under quarantine, especially the city of Wuhan, to end as fast as possible this virus outbreak. Also, the first of the hospitals being built to combat the coronavirus patients has been completed in a record 10 days. It will start receiving patients.
We thank Iramsi for that report. Russia has denied reports that Turkish forces have retaliated against the Syrian army after 6 Turkish soldiers were killed by Syrian shelling early on Monday. Our correspondent in Moscow, Lisandra Kots, reports.
The Russian military command has denied reports of attacks by Turkish forces against Syrian army positions in the northwestern province of Idlib. According to the Russian Center for Reconciliation in Syria, no planes of the Turkish Air Force crossed the Syrian border, nor was any other attack on the Syrian armed forces recorded. This was in response to comments from Turkish President Erdogan. The Russians also said that Turkish troops were affected by a Syrian army offensive early on Monday because they did not provide information in time on their movements in the de-escalation zone in Idlib. President Erdogan said that his generals were maintaining contact with Russian military commanders and that, if necessary, he would inform President Vladimir Putin directly about the situation. Damascus has long criticized Ankara for supporting and training armed groups that have been trying to overthrow the legitimate government of Syria. Russia has called on both Turkey and Iran to help find a peaceful solution in Syria and to act as guarantors of such a process. We should remember that Russia has been supporting the Syrian government in its fight against terrorism since 2015, and that Iran also has volunteers fighting in support of the government. While Turkey is seen as having influence over those anti-government groups in Syria that the West describes as moderates. Last week, President Erdogan accused Russia of not meeting the commitments it made in last year's agreement at Sochi to put an end to the fighting in Idlib. That agreement proposed an end to hostilities, the withdrawal of heavy weapons, Turkish patrols in the de-escalation zone of Idlib, and sending of international observers. In response, Russia said that it was fulfilling all of the points agreed in Sochi.
We thank our correspondent for that report. With the support of the Uruguayan Carnival Union, the project More Carnival tries to create an alternative event so that people can enjoy the popular festival for free. More details in this report.
To return to the carnival of before, back when there was no competition and where every neighborhood enjoyed the popular art and excellence of Uruguay, following that dream, several Uruguayan carnival groups supported by the Uruguayan Carnival Union created the proposal Más Carnaval.
Más Carnaval es un proyecto que surge.
Más Carnaval is a project that arises from a group of comrades, all of us who have been going to the Uruguayan traditional carnival for years. It's based on concerts to generate more participatory spaces, more open, with fewer regulations. We started to crank out something that today is becoming reality.
The idea was to organize alternative carnival shows which could be replicated in all neighborhoods where there was no official competition between groups, no prizes, no sponsors, and no commercial logic whatsoever.
It's an idea to go back to the old carnival, but to make it a 21st century version, not to go back to the past, but to make something in the future. That's better. If there are 200 stages before, well, now there are 500 stages. Every neighborhood could have a stage, every group, every collective.
This year, the groups organized with a Capurro Cultural Collective and agreed on a day of popular art where they could also learn about solidarity in cooperative economic initiatives.
When the possibility of joining the networks of Más Carnaval arose, we realized that what was coming was very big, because planting a milestone like this in something as big for Uruguay as the Carnival is something that we could not be left out of, because it has much to do with what we believe, which is to build more opportunities.
For many, the best thing about the project is that it allows many Uruguayans who could not pay for tickets or move to other neighborhoods to enjoy a high-quality show near their home.
Because the truth is that the carnival is to feel it. I always used to say it's not the same when they take you to the stage as watching it on TV. Sometimes because of an economic issue or a remote issue, because there aren't stages in all neighborhoods. That doesn't always reach the people, so I think it's very good.
The Más Carnaval project brings together 28 carnival groups that do not participate in the official competition. They are grouped together by the Union of Carnival Workers of Uruguay, which seeks to dignify the work of carnival workers and give back to the people a show that is becoming more and more distant from the people.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. We're on social media